Hello, welcome to today's class. This is going to be a government class and it is due to popular demand. Like I said in our previous government class, that our students advised and asked us to shed more light on concepts of government, and it is to that regard that we have this class. Now in today's class we'll be talking about some concepts of government, and this class will bring to rest everything that has to do with concepts of government. Now, the first concept of government we'll talk about in this class is what we call political culture. Political culture, like the name implies, has to do with the culture of a people as it relates to politics. We all have our culture. For instance, we have food culture. Some of us don't like to eat, some of us are gluttons. Now, we have political culture. What's shaping our attitudes as it relates to politics? Now, political culture can simply be defined as the sentiments, the norms, the beliefs that provide a guideline that rules our political behavior, the things that guide our political behavior is referred to as our political culture. What makes us behave in a certain way as it relates to politics? Some of us are involved in politics and some of us are aloof from politics. Why do some people like to vote and others like to abstain from voting? All these factors that shaping our attitude is what we refer to as what? Political culture. I will repeat, political culture is the belief, sentiments, and norms that provide a guideline, or that provide a rule which provides a guideline to our political behavior. In more simple terms, political culture is the political behavior of a people. Now, we also have a concept of government called political socialization. Now, political socialization is the different processes involved in the acquisition of political culture. I will make this simpler. Now, human beings do not get political culture from birth. They grow to attain a particular attitude as it relates to politics. Whether you like to vote during elections or you like to abstain during elections, you did not get this attitude from childhood. You got this attitude as a result of different factors that shaping you. Now, these different factors that shaping an individual's political behavior from childhood to adulthood is what is referred to as political socialization. And one of these factors is the family. The family is the smallest unit of a society. Whether you are apolitical, that is, you abstain from politics, or you are extremely conscious about politics, it is as a result mostly of the family that you belong to. Now, for instance, if you have parents that do not vote during elections, there is every likelihood that you will not also vote during elections. Another factor that influences our political culture is another political socialization. Another stage of political socialization is your religious body. Some of us belong to the denomination of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you are, for instance, a Jehovah's Witness, it means that you are mandated to abstain from voting. So now, religion usually affects people's political culture. That is a socialization. An avenue for political socialization is also what? Religion. The first avenue I mentioned is family. Second avenue, religion. We have peer group. You know, like the cliche goes, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. If you have friends that are involved in politics, that are extremely conscious about politics, there is every likelihood that you will also be conscious about politics. Are we together? Now, the mass media also has a role to play in the political culture of a people. An avenue for political socialization is also referred to as what? The mass media. Be it print, be it the social media, be it radio, television. They influence the political behavior of a people. Are we together? Now, another concept of government that we will discuss in this class is what we call feudalism. Feudalism. Now, feudalism is a system of government that was practiced mostly in the Middle Ages, the medieval era. Now, in feudalism, we have three people, three levels of individuals. We have the kings, we have the kings, we have the lords, and we have the vassals. Now, the kings were of course in charge of a feudal society, but the kings did not have as much powers as the lords. Now, in a feudal society, we also have the lowest level of people called the vassals. The vassals work for the lords with the gain of using the lord's land. Now, in a feudal society, you are said to be wealthy in accordance with how much landed property you have. Now, in a feudal society, the vassal works for the lord, that is the landlord, in exchange for a piece of land that the vassal, of course, farms in to eke out a living. Now, a feudal society is an agrarian society. An agrarian society is a society whereby agriculture is the mainstay of the economy. Agriculture is the predominant occupation of everyone. Now, you can simply define a feudal society as a society based on land ownership and control. Now, the vassal, who are the lowest class in the feudal society, work for the lords, who give them fief. A fief is the piece of land that the landlord gives to the vassal in exchange for the vassal's loyalty. In exchange for the vassal's loyalty. Are we together? Now, we'll move on to the concept of government referred to as fascism. Now, fascism was mostly practiced in Italy. Capital of Italy is Rome. Now, fascism gained control, or we can say Italy practiced fascism from 1922 to 1943, and the major front runner of the concept fascism is the National Fascist Party, NFP, of Italy. Now, during fascism in Italy, there was a leader called Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini was the major front runner of the concept of government known as fascism. And I told you that fascism thrived in the country called what? Italy. And fascism is a kind of government that the dictator, who is the head of government, is in charge of every aspect of human life. In a fascist society, people do not have freedom of expression, neither do they have freedom of movement. Chants of nationalism do not thrive in a fascist society. The fascist government, the national fascist government, controls every aspect of human life. They control the mass media. Fascism is a totalitarian government. Now, before we round off this class, you will properly understand what it means to say a totalitarian government. Now, we'll move on to the next concept of government referred to as oligarchy. Now, oligarchy is a government that is controlled by a few people or a few group of people. Now, when a government is an oligarch, it means that only a few people control the government. This is the opposite of democracy, that is a majoritarian rule. Now, democracy is majoritarian. It means that democracy favors majority rule as opposed to minority rule. But in oligarchy, the minority are more favored than the what? Majority. In democracy, the majority rule for the benefit of the what? Majority. But in oligarchy, the minority rule for their own what? Selfish interest, for the benefit of the what? Minority. Several oligarch governments will include a military government. Of course, a military government only comprised of military officers. I believe you understand me. And in an oligarchy, people that assume leadership positions are those that have some things that differentiates them or distinguish them from the others. For instance, those that have wealth are those that control government. Those that have military background are those that control government. Those that are nobles, that are of royal backgrounds, that their parents were once kings and queens, are those that control government. Now, oligarchy believes that you must have exceptional qualities for you to be a member of the ruling class. Now, during oligarchy, in an oligarch country, a certain family can control the entire country. For instance, in the era of the Habsburg and the Bourbon family, the Habsburg family and the Bourbon family. The Bourbon family ruled France and some other parts of Europe, and the Habsburg family ruled Austria and some other parts of Europe, including Hungary. Now, when you have a family like Habsburg or Bourbon ruling a territory, that kind of system of government, that concept of government that has been operational in that territory is called what? Oligarchy. Now, let us move to communalism. Now, communalism, like Maury Bookchin decided to define it, is an association of loosely autonomous communities. When communities that have some level of their independence attached or still retained by them decide to come together to form a loose federation with the aim of allowing an egalitarian society whereby everyone had common rights over the resources of the state. Now, communalism is ancient. It is a system of government whereby semi-autonomous communities came together to form a loose federation. And in a communalist society, it was a system of egalitarianism. There was no distinction between the rich and the poor, because properties were not owned by the rich but by the community, and everyone had a right to a piece of land insofar as that piece of land was not being used by another person. Are we together? Now, we also have what we call socialism. Now, socialism is a political theory. It is also an economist theory, an economic theory. Now, and so because it is a political theory, we can call it a concept of government. Socialism is a principle that believes that the means of production, the means of distribution of what has been produced or what have been produced, and the means of exchanging what have been produced should reside with the government. Now, if the government of a country controls the means of production, distribution, and exchange, if the government of a country controls the industries in that country or regulates how business are being run, then that country is a socialist country. Are we together? Now, closely associated with socialism is communism. Now, do not mistake communalism for communism. Now, communism is a theory that was brought to life, that was propagated by a man called Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels. They co-authored a book known as the Communist Manifesto. And in the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels believed that there should be no class distinction. That the reason why there is rich and poor, the reason why there is rich and poor is because the means of production, distribution, and exchange are controlled by private individuals. Now, this theory, communism, can be said to be a rebirth of communalism. Now, communism is trying to reborn communalism and trying to break down classes of people. It is trying to extinguish, it is trying to erase classes of people. It is trying to create a system where everyone is equal. It is trying to eliminate money, eliminate classes. It believes that in a society that is being run by private individuals, that those that have wealth will continually use their wealth to impoverish the poor. I repeat, communism believes that if wealth of the state is not controlled by government, those that have wealth will ensure that they do not spread the wealth with the aim of continually exploiting those that do not have it. And I repeat, this theory was made popular by a man called Karl Marx, who wrote a book entitled The Communist Manifesto. Are we together? Now, we also have a concept of government known as capitalism. Capitalism is the opposite of socialism. While socialism believes that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be controlled by government, capitalism believes that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be controlled by private individuals who will run businesses not to provide essential commodities but to earn profits for themselves. Capitalism is like a laissez-faire approach. It's like a live and let live approach, whereby government has limited or no control of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. And a country that capitalism flourishes in presently is the United States of America. In this light, you can say the USA is a capitalist state, and a country that socialism flourishes in, we can use Russia as the most perfect example. Russia is the largest country. Russia is the largest country in the world in terms of landmass. Its capital is Moscow. It is a communist state. Are we together? Now let us move on to aristocracy. Aristocracy is a system of government, or is a concept of government whereby the best individuals are in charge of government. And in an aristocratic government, those that are mostly in charge of government are the nobles, those that are from royal families. It is believed that a member of a royal family has intelligence and tact to be able to control government. That it is believed that ordinary men do not have the requisite knowledge from childhood to control government. Aristocracy is from the Greek word aristokratia. It means rule of the best. When the best people are in charge of government, when the intellectuals are in charge of government, that kind of government is called an aristocratic government. Are we together? Now, we have a totalitarian government. That is where we will draw the curtain for today's class. Totalitarian government. Now, in a totalitarian government, there is the absence of opposition. In a totalitarian government, the head of the government is a dictator. A dictator is one that rules a state without the rule of law. When the law comes out of a man's mouth by proclamations, that state is a totalitarian state. What this means is that totalitarianism, of course, is also the opposite of democracy, because in democracy, the rule of law controls the leader. But in a totalitarian government, the leader has no controlling factor. In short, the leader is the law. What the leader says is law becomes law by a fiat. Are we together? So in this light, with regards to this explanation, a military government is a totalitarian government because the head of the military government does not rule with the rule of law. He rules with decrees. Are you with me? So now I want to believe that let us round off with this liberalism. Liberalism is a concept of government that advocates liberty, freedom. Now, in liberalism, it is believed that the relationship between the government and the governed, that is the relationship between the government and those that the government is ruling, that is the subject, is a contractual relationship. That is, liberalism believes that there is a contract between the government and the people. The government is not higher than the people, that they are just equal, that the government is holding power for the people because everyone cannot hold power at the same time. Liberalism can also be said to be an opposite of totalitarianism because in a liberal society, there is also a laissez-faire approach. There is the principle of live and let live. Everyone has the freedom to do what he or she wants to do as long as it does not go contrary to moral rights and injunctions, as long as it does not go contrary to the norms, conventions, and beliefs of the land. One example of a country that practices liberalism, that practices the concept of liberalism is, of course, the United States of America. Now, we have discussed some key concepts of government. We started with political culture, the the beliefs that provide a guideline for the political behavior of a person. We moved on to political socialization. This is how a person acquires his political behavior from childhood to adulthood. The different processes or the different things that shaping a person's political behavior from childhood to adulthood are called the avenues of socialization. And we started with the family. The family shaping how you behave in regards to politics. We moved on to peer group, moved on to religion, and then so there's one factor that we did not mention: schools. Schools also affect how we behave as it relates to politics. Subjects such as government, history, civic education, of course, shaping our political behavior. And then we talked about fascism. I told you it was a theory that was prevalent in Italy under the National Fascist Party. In a country that practices fascism, there is only one party. There is one party system. And I told you that this concept of government thrived in Italy from 1922 to 1943, and then we moved on to feudalism. Now in feudalism, we have three levels of individuals. You have the king, you have the lords, you have the vassals. The vassals work for the lords a mandatory service of 40 days, and the lords give them, for working for the lords give them a part of land called a fief. Now we moved on to oligarchy, a government of a few people. When a few people control government, that government is an oligarch. And then we talked about aristocracy, when only the best people rule government, then we can say that is an aristocratic government. And then we moved on to socialism, when the means of production, distribution, and exchange is controlled by government. And then we talked about capitalism, when the means of production, distribution, and exchange is controlled by private individuals. And then we talked about totalitarianism, when the government of the land is dictatorial and controls the totality of human life. And then we rounded off with liberalism, a system of liberty, a system of freedom, and egalitarian system. I want to believe that to a very large extent we have talked about the different concepts of government that you should know at this level. And do not forget, each class that you see on this platform is brought to you by the magnanimity of Isaac Humanitarian Foundation. And spread the news, tell others about what is happening here, and do not forget to stay safe. This phase will pass. Thank you.